If you're a student, a teacher, or really anyone who writes for a living, you've probably been thinking a lot about the explosion of AI tools. It's kind of overwhelming, right? Well, today, we're going to get some real clarity on this new world, and we're using Sidney Dobrin's fantastic book, AI and Writing, as our guide. Let's get into it. So let's start with the big, scary question, the one that's on everyone's mind. Is this it? Is everything we know about writing, teaching, and learning about AI about to get completely replaced by a machine? Look, it's a totally valid fear, and it's exactly where we need to begin. So to get our heads around this, we're going to break it down. We'll kick things off with the current mix of panic and promise out there. Then we'll look at how to think of AI as a writing partner. From there, we'll get into the really important stuff, how to use it with integrity, how its role changes in different careers, and finally, we'll bring it all back home to the most important piece of the puzzle, you, the human writer. First up, let's just address the vibe in the room. Right now, any conversation about AI and writing, especially in schools, feels like it's at one of two extremes. And this really captures it perfectly. On one side, you have the total panic, the fear of cheating, the idea that human writers are about to become obsolete, that we're going to lose all our core skills. But then, on the other side, you have this incredible promise of amazing collaborations, brand new opportunities, developing new skills, and just being way more efficient. So what's the book's take on all this? Well, it cuts right through the noise with a really calm, centered approach. This isn't some writing apocalypse. It's just the next step in a very long line of writing technologies. I mean, think about the huge leap from handwriting to the printing press, or from a typewriter to a word processor. This is another one of those moments. A really big one, for sure, but an evolution, not an end.
Okay, so if it's an evolution and not a threat, what does that actually look like day to day? Well, the book suggests we should start thinking of AI as a kind of writing partner.
Now, before we go any further, let's just make sure we're on the same page. When we say generative AI, we're talking about systems that don't just analyze information. They actually create new things. They're basically expert pattern matchers that have been trained on, well, pretty much the entire internet. And they use those patterns to generate new text, images, whatever you need. Now, just think about your own writing process for a second. It probably follows some version of these steps, right? You got to come up with an idea, do some research, get that messy first draft down, and then you spend a bunch of time cleaning it up and making it better. And here's the crucial insight. The mistake is thinking AI is just a machine you go to for step 2 to write your draft for you. The real power is in seeing it as a collaborator across this entire process. It can help you brainstorm when you have writer's block, and it can give you great suggestions when you're trying to revise. This slide just nails it. This right here is the new skill we all need to learn, how to write good prompts. Because the quality of what you get out is directly tied to the quality of your instructions. A lazy, weak prompt gets you a generic, boring result. But a strong, specific prompt, one that gives the AI a role to play, a clear context, and a specific goal, that's how you get something genuinely useful. You know, this leads us right into what might be the most important part of this whole conversation. Because having access to these incredibly powerful tools, well, it comes with a lot of responsibility. The book makes this point so clearly. The goal is not to find a clever way to get the AI to do your work for you. Real power, real mastery comes from using these tools ethically to make the work you're already doing even better. And here is a massive reason why that's so important. You have to be aware of something called AI hallucinations. This is a wild phenomenon where the AI, in its eagerness to give you an answer, will just make things up. It'll invent fake sources, create quotes that were never said, or state things that are just plain wrong. But it'll do it with total confidence.
Oh, I love this cartoon because it says everything you need to know. The stuff an AI spits out can feel like a miracle, but you can't just trust that it is one. You are the human in the loop. You and only you are the fact checker. So what does using AI with integrity actually look like? It pretty much boils down to these 3 key pillars. First, be transparent. Be open about how and when you used AI. Second, attribution. Cite the tool when it's appropriate, just like any other source. And finally, the most important one, verification. You have to fact-check everything. At the end of the day, it's your name on the work, so you're responsible for it. Okay, so we've covered the practical side and the ethical side. Now let's zoom out a little and look at the even bigger picture. A really brilliant insight from the book is that there's no single universal rule for using AI. It all comes down to context. Think about it. In an academic paper, your goal is original thinking, so being transparent is everything.
At work, your goal might be efficiency and clarity, so you just follow whatever your company's policy is. And for your own personal creative stuff, you've got total freedom to experiment. The rules of the game change depending on where you're playing. Being a responsible user also means being a critical one. You have to be aware of the serious issues baked into this technology. Remember, AI is trained on human data, so it can easily absorb and even amplify our worst biases. Not everyone has equal access to these tools, and they use a shocking amount of energy to run. We just have to keep these things in mind. And all of this leads to a pretty straightforward conclusion for anyone thinking about their future. Knowing how to work with AI and how to think critically about it is not a niche, optional skill anymore. It's quickly becoming as fundamental as knowing how to use a word processor. We're talking about core skills like adaptability, critical thinking, and collaboration. Which brings us to our final, and frankly our most important section. After all of this talk about technology and prompts and data, where does the human writer actually fit in? This image just gets right to the heart of the matter. So often, we frame this whole thing as a competition, right? Human versus machine. The book argues that's completely the wrong way to think about it. The real challenge and the real opportunity is to figure out how to work with the machine, how to collaborate in a way that makes our own thinking even better. And this quote right here is the core message, the one thing you should take away from all this. The technology is an amazing tool, there's no doubt about it. But writing itself, the act of thinking critically, of being creative, of making ethical choices, of developing a unique voice, that is and always will be a deeply human endeavor. The AI can help us with that, but it can never, ever replace it. So we'll end by turning the question back to you. This technology isn't going anywhere. It's only going to get more powerful. So the challenge for all of us is to move past the panic, move past the hype, and start thinking seriously about how we can build a smart, ethical, and effective partnership with these new tools to make ourselves better writers. Thanks for watching.